Good day, everybody. My name is Brad Steele, and I'm the Senior Director of Unified Communications at the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and I am an NASTD Life member and past president. NASTD is the National Association of State Technology Directors. It is an organization of technology professionals dedicated to serving state government. It is a member-driven association focused on advancing the effective use of information technology and services to enhance state government operations. In Article 1, Section 2 of the NASTD Constitution, one of the key goals outlined is to engage in programs for the training, education, and development of technology professionals from all areas of state government. During my presidency, we initiated the creation of educational videos, which we named IT-101s, to support this mission, and here we are again. These videos feature interviews with industry leaders from our corporate affiliate community, where I ask roughly 10 questions related to a technology, service, or strategy. And if you've explored these videos in the past, you know you can find them on the NASTD website, nastd.org, which provides you a link to our YouTube channel. And there you can find all of our videos that we've recorded in the past. And we ask that once there that you remember to subscribe and thumbs up and like and all of those good things that social media people ask you to do. So today's topic for discussion is identity security. And for that, our corporate affiliate subject matter expert is SailPoint and their representative, Dana Reed. Dana, welcome.
How are you? Welcome. Thank you.
So Dana is a SailPoint distinguished engineer and serves in a field CTO capacity, evangelizing SailPoint's products and specifically their AI-led predictive identity capabilities. Dana has 20 years of experience in identity management, having applied IGA experience in most vertical markets, including healthcare, manufacturing, retail, finance, defense, and higher education. Dana's career IAM experience spans the full breadth of IAM-related responsibilities, spanning development, design, product management, and sales. That's quite the resume, and I want to be an evangelist anything ever in my life. I guess I'm an evangelist for IT-101, so I guess. Before we get started, I always like to ask for a fun fact about the people that I'm working with. So tell me something about yourself that other folks don't know that they might find as fun or interesting.
Sure. Well, first off, thank you very much for having me. Really appreciate the time and the opportunity to share SailPoint and what we're about and the problems that we're solving. Um, as far as the fun fact about me, the one I used to always give was that when I was a young kid, I played the lottery for the first time. My parents gave me a scratch-off ticket, and I won $10,000 the first time I ever played the lottery. And so that didn't start probably a good trend in my belief of being able to win when you gamble, you know. But I think the other one would be just that a couple of years ago, I was really into swimming, and I've always wanted to um, swim Alcatraz, and I've always heard about it, and people do it, and one day I just signed up and flew out there and swam Alcatraz. So, believe it or not, it is very possible for them to have escaped. They probably actually did. So, no sharks, but very freezing cold water and a pretty brutal current. But I made it. So that was that's probably my crowning achievement in my physical life, at least.
Fun. Yeah, my boys both swam in high school. They loved that 200-meter
Great.
freestyle. Just swim forever.
Yeah.
Put a song in their head and swim forever until somebody told them to stop. Um, that's awesome. All right, so our subject matter today is identity security. I mean, it's something that we heard a lot about in Detroit a few weeks ago when we were out there from the different states. And I know it's something that we're dealing with in Massachusetts as well. We're all looking to kind of have that single identity for folks when they're dealing with the states, and for state employees as well when they're dealing with different systems and different applications within their stack. But this is identity security. So tell me, what really is identity security?
So I think when you look at the cybersecurity world, if you were to create kind of a hub and spoke model, the majority of breaches occur somewhere in the realm of identity, right? We're either we're we're spoofing someone's credentials, we're using privilege that a user has that they maybe even don't know that they have, or don't know that they or maybe needed it in the past, and we're exploiting those things. And so when we look at what SailPoint does, we essentially govern who has access to what inside of an organization. And so obviously you can't govern what you can't see. So the first piece of this is really is visibility and understanding who has access on what systems and correlating them back, as you had mentioned, to that single identity. And then providing controls around join, remove, reliever type of lifecycle automated controls. Obviously, there's a business case there and just automating getting users access, but there's also that security case there as well of making sure that users essentially always operate at the rule of least privilege. Give them not what is acceptable, but only what is adequate. What we have done at SailPoint is that said, look, we are now governing so many things, and we are governing so many types of things, whether it is an employee, a partner, a vendor, a constituent, at some point in time, consumer may come into this, and now we're looking at non-humans, machines, agentic AI bots. What was maybe a previously kind of ungoverned greenfield area of identities that had access and could do things, but no one really understood where they were created, how they were managed, what happened to them when they were no longer in use, etc. Now we can use AI and machine learning and data science to start understanding certain people that have similar job function probably actually have similar job access. And by looking at that, we can do better role modeling. We can understand who the outliers are in the organization, which is typically because you either are a job title of one, some chief technology officer, a singular title, or you don't look like anyone because you look like everyone you used to work with. We never got rid of the access over time that you have garnered, and we've never put the magnifying glass on you and brought the access that you no longer need and remediated it. So there's a lot going on inside of identity security, but at the end of the day, it's about making sure people have the right access at the right time and only for that amount of time, whether that is operating at the rule of least privilege, or even operating at what we call a zero standing privileges mentality, which is really if a user were to clock out of, say, a warehouse or distribution center, all of their access goes away. And when they were to clock right back in the next day, their access all comes back. So by removing friction in these processes, it has really opened up our capabilities inside of SailPoint to govern things a whole lot better. And of course, adding that AI, machine learning, data science layer on top of it allows the computer to derive the insight, deliver that to an end user, maybe a manager, a resource owner, IT security, whoever it may be, and they can then act upon that in the affirmative, in the negative, removing access, extending access, any of those types of things. Identity security now actually becomes a conversation with the end user, which is something that I think was lacking in the past.
Okay. So, what role would identity security play in government operations, and why is it important?
So I think that's a multifaceted answer there. But we look, and regardless of it's in government or enterprise, higher education, healthcare, et cetera, if you cannot control the identity and understand who has access to what, you don't have the control that you need. And so inside of state and local government or federal government, et cetera, we are governed, I think, by additional regulations, FedRAMP, state ramp, et cetera. We are able to do the work much more securely, I think, than anyone could. But at the end of the day, we're really talking about making sure that people can only do what they need to do their job. And there's a lot of risk, especially in terms of government with access to data, access to resources. You're looking at publicly funded activities typically. We had an issue in a large university where a student had finagled his door card or his ID to go through a door because he didn't want to walk around the block because there was construction. Little did he realize that inside the building he was walking through were actually research facilities that contained nuclear isotopes. And of course, those nuclear isotopes were linked back to government funding, whatever it may be, where the university had that hack been exposed. They could have lost that funding. So there's a lot going on there. I think that the responsibility inside of state and local government, et cetera, to utilize the taxpayers' dollar um, in a secure and efficient way. Um, we're all trusting the government, right? And I think putting identity standards in place and identity programs in place really capitalizes on that need for trust and understanding that someone is watching, right? That we have those controls in place.
Okay. And we talk about the controls that, government employees have access to their systems, et cetera. But does identity security help our constituents as well?
Yeah, it really depends on these are identity security is a program and not a project, right? So once we land somewhere, we typically will expand and go further. Um, Users have access to resources, right? And now those users can be anyone. Typically, where we will start is inside of a government agency, working with their employees, making sure that they get the right access that they need. But at the end of the day, constituents also need to interact with resources from the government. And so, therefore, in a lot of ways, we act as that kind of core linchpin to help facilitate making sure that we know who that constituent is and making sure that we can grant them the access that they need and put them through that gauntlet of controls that need to be in place to make sure they get it. Now, the key here is to do that in a frictionless manner. So the end user has no idea what is actually taking place. Give you a good example of that. When there's a single sign-on company out there that if you were to go to utilize your ATM card and put your ATM card in a machine, it actually looks at your geolocation of your cell phone. And if your cell phone is not in the same geolocation as your ATM card or the ATM that you're using, it will move you up to multi-factor authentication to make sure that we really do understand who you are. Because the guess here is that your cell phone should be in your pocket if you're sitting over at the ATM machine. So there's a lot of controls in here. We talked about zero trust and trust but verify. There's a lot going on here behind the scenes. And the idea is that if I can provide the service to the end user in a way that is secure, everybody wins. We talked about this before, but when you I like to buy local. And oftentimes when I buy local, I use my credit card. And oftentimes 4 days later, I find that my credit card has been breached because they didn't have the controls in place that maybe they needed. And so you end up moving back to somewhere like an Amazon or something. But if you have those controls in place, everybody wins. The constituent gets the service that they require, and the business provides the security to itself and to the actual consumer. And security really does its job.
And that really formulates that bond of trust, right? So
100%. And I think right now, in the political environment and just the environment in general, like trusting your employer, trusting the government, trusting your friends, trusting everybody, trust is just, I think, at the foreground of the way we think these days. And so to do it right is incredibly important because if you do it wrong, it becomes very visible and frankly becomes very expensive.
all right, so if we've made the decision, we want to move forward, we want to start working on
Yeah.
identity security, what would states have to implement to deploy an identity security platform?
So as I said before, these are programs. So I think the first thing that you want to do is really understand that you are making a decision to embark on a identity security journey. Uh, Vendors such as SailPoint, we can come in and help you visualize what that program looks like and kind of put you, we've done this thousands of times, right? So we can put you on a nice set of guardrails and help you understand what these programs look like and ways to quote unquote eat the elephant, right? I mean, we don't want to boil the ocean here. We want to take these things one step at a time. And I think there may not be a right and a wrong way, but there's definitely better methods to the madness than there are others. In terms of how you license and those types of things, what we prefer to do is the most successful programs that we see have buy-in at the executive leadership level. So whether it's a board level or whatever it may be, but the ELT, the executive leadership team, really needs to buy in on this because these programs are going to touch essentially every area of the government in some way, shape, or form, whether it's just automating the provision of access to someone, asking a user to spend some of their time to certify access, defining policy violations. We really do touch all of this. Now, in terms of how we license the product, we license it by user. Now, obviously, not every identity is made the same. Good example would be in the higher education space. You have employees and staff and active students, but you have this ever-growing alumni base that maybe is only interacting at very small amounts with the institution. Same way with healthcare. It would be the same way with the state and local government or the federal government, et cetera. So we license by user, but I think the best way to describe it is we try to license it very fairly. We look at the identities, understand what they're doing, how they're utilizing the resources that may be being governed, and then license it based off of that. We obviously have a whole team involved on our sales side that can help walk you through getting onboarded. But then once you are onboarded, what we really try to do is to maintain that relationship. So we have what's called a customer success manager. That person is dedicated to you as a specific client to make sure that you are getting the service level that you require. And if there's any additional types of tooling or features that SailPoint is now offering, we want to make sure that you have visibility to those things to be able to make decisions as the needs of your environment continue to grow. So there's a lot of pieces to how all of this works. But again, the nice thing is I think we've cut our teeth on, in this case, literally the largest organizations on the planet across the globe. We've hit most every vertical market you can imagine, obviously government being a large portion of that for us. The largest employer of contractors is, in fact, the government. And so there are some tools that SailPoint offers, our non-employee risk management capability, that are really specifically honed in and built for those types of problems that we see. There's a lot going on there, but it's there's a reason why I've been doing this for 20 years.
All right, so you covered how it's licensed. So I'm assuming there's a cost per license. That's great. But what does a typical identity security project look like? So what are the steps along the way at a high level?
Yeah. So where it typically starts is visibility. And we want to look at your core applications first. Typically, those are the ones that are governed in, maybe by Sarbanes-Oxley or NERC-CIP or, whatever PII, whatever relates to a specific vertical market. We want to have visibility to those things first. Visibility allows us on the data side to understand and categorize where your data is. Where, if you look at this kind of like Doppler radar, it's not just about understanding where the clouds are. It's more about understanding where the storms are. Where's the sensitive stuff? So we can go ahead and get you the visibility that you need. The next thing is to do what we call governance. Let's correlate that access back to an end user, and then ask that user's manager or someone that's responsible for them, whether it's an application owner or whomever, to validate the fact that this person actually needs the access that they have. And all organizations are going to start in a state of overprivilege. And we want to get you now down to a state of least privilege, if at all possible. That's where looking at things like outliers is going to help you. We can utilize data science to, when you're doing an access certification, every individual line item, we can show you, is this in line with your peers or not? And provide scent to drive the user to maybe make a better decision. Now, once you have governance in place, then you have a couple options as to what you want to do. One, you could do policy definition, segregation of duties violations, cross application. It's the classic, you can't cash checks and write checks type of things. And there are specific applications like SAP and some others that obviously have some more lower level policy there. You can also take another journey and go down the user lifecycle management capability here, which would include password management. These are typically the areas where we most often show the ROI when we were to sell these projects. What's it costing your health, your HR representatives to change passwords? What if we allowed users to self-service them? What if we allowed an end user to self-service creation and management of their own distribution groups? Huge costs involved in those things, including the onboarding and offboarding of users as they join the organization and they leave. Let's make sure that we can automate the process. Now, that, of course, leads you into the next thing, which is access modeling. With data science, a standard social structure is actually what's called a homophilic environment with high modality. What it means is that people in a specific department have the same access as other people in that department. And if you compare them against people in a different department, they would have fundamentally different access. It's no different than high school, where the people on the band were dressed very similarly, but if you compare them to the football team, they would look very different, even though both units actually looked very uniform. We can utilize data science now to understand who people are. We can identify how they are correlated because they have similar access. Well, if they're correlated because they have similar access, what is the causation? We can go look at the causation. Could be your location. It could be the department that you belong in. It could be your job function. And of course, through utilizing that, we can now build better roles. Once you build better roles, of course, you can now automate granting the access and removal of that access. And of course, you can bring that into a much more automated fashion. The uh, the business case there becomes quite obvious. And then I think the last piece of the puzzle here is to look for how to measure the program. And what a lot of folks, I think, miss on is continuous measurement of the program. Is it working, and how is it working? And that's our ability to take the data and not only query it in whatever way you see fit, but also then push that data out to other data lakes, so that maybe if you're using Tableau or Snowflake or whatever it may be, you have access to our data to be able to share that and create larger, maybe more macro level insights that the SailPoint data on its own could do.
Okay. And so does a typical identity security environment rely on the cloud, or is it premise based, or is there some mix therein?
So I think, like most software out there today, for the longest time we had an on-prem product, and a lot of government institutions, obviously with FedRAMP regulations, the state ramp regulations, that was the method that they chose. Now, obviously, we've taken a lot of work and put into our cloud-based offering, which gives us FedRAMP, ability to operate those types of things, so that now we can actually, our cloud-based solution is a viable solution. So we do have both. But I would say, and I realize every vertical has different regulations that they need to be governed by. But when I look at over the past 3 years, I would say the majority of folks, if they can, are are wanting to consume identity from a cloud um, footprint. Right now, what that allows us to do, obviously, like any cloud software, is it allows us to build the software and deploy the software. SailPoint is no longer a build company in terms of building great identity software. We're now actually a build and operate company. So our core competency includes operating the technology as much as it does building it, which includes rolling it out, sending it. There's no more upgrades. It's continuous deployment of feature sets. And what it allows your teams to do is to do what you want them to do, which is focus on taking our technology and delivering that to the business. All of that care and feeding, cost, and responsibility you no longer need to worry about. Let SailPoint do it. It's what we do every day. That's why we're in business. And you can focus on the stuff that really matters, which is delivering feature sets to your constituents.
Okay. Now, obviously, this is a security product, right? It's helping to secure our environment. But are there any concerns security wise with rolling out an identity security platform?
Yeah, I think I think, look, in any software, there's always going to be concerns, from a security perspective. But the where I think I would answer the question is to say that, look, you are granting SailPoint to a degree the keys to the kingdom, right? I mean, it is going to be an orchestrator now of delivering access to people across an organization or government, whatever it may be. So that means that when we connect to our systems, those connections have high privilege and capability. And so we want to make sure that, from a security perspective, let's make sure that we understand what those credentials are. We understand what they can do. We have them stored and cycled in, let's say, like a PAM tool, like a CyberArk or Beyond Trust or whatever it may be. We really want to make sure that's there. Now, additionally, SailPoint has a lot of knowledge around where is the where is the overexposed access, where is the highly secure, highly privileged access, and of course you want to make sure that you have distributed visibility to the right people of those insights, because a person, obviously the wrong person with those insights can of course cause problems. Again, 80 some percent of breaches are identity related, and when you look at SailPoint as a tool, we need to make sure that we govern our own identities as much and as safely as we're governing all the identities that are out in the cloud as well, or
Okay.
out in your environment, I should say.
Yeah. So in looking at this, this is obviously, something that's very important, very critical, and getting a lot of
Yeah.
conversation. So what's the strategic direction that identity security is moving in, and what developments can we expect to see over the next few years?
Great question. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been at SailPoint almost 14. I have yet to see a time of an inflection point like we have right now in terms of the capability that we have and the acceleration that we have of what we are delivering. Um, there's some interesting stuff happening. One is, there's always been a problem in the industry around effective access. You may have access to a role, which grants access to a resource, which grants access maybe to something else, just to some data or whatever it may be. The same is occurring now as we are moving out to IaaS environments like Google Cloud, Azure, AWS, et cetera. The people that created those environments are very smart, and they created really interesting identity models out there that we need to actually now understand and bring them in and create a bridge actually out to all of those environments. So we have a lot more work that we are investing in terms of understanding those environments, and bringing that data in, ability to classify who has access to what. Again, out there, I think identity is moving from application identity to data governance and cloud governance as well. So I think we've reached kind of the two oceans now in terms of what we're governing. But the things that we're governing now are also changing. I don't think it's a shock to anyone to know to see the onslaught of AI technologies in all business. But also, what's happening is agentic AI is now taking off as well. So we are seeing someone like NVIDIA, as an example, would have, I think it's like 10x the number of machine and agentic AI bot identities as they do people. And that's going to proliferate across all vertical markets, government included. There's a lot of reasons for that, but I think being able to govern that is going to be a huge issue. So we're doubling down investments in there, doubling down investments in terms of our ability to um, traverse or path traversal problems, like using an identity graph and understanding who has access to what. Um, Additionally, the use of AI and machine learning across the entire product. We used to use peer group analysis to understand who has access to what and find groupings of peers. But we can also use generative AI to look at your things like Active Directory groups and auto-generate business descriptions for what those groups actually do. And it remarkably works very, very well. We can use generative AI and agentic AI in our own products now, as we've just released, so that if you want to build a workflow to do something, instead of going and building it, you can just ask the bot in natural language to build it for you, and it will do it. I actually built one of those today. It was pretty impressive. If you have a search for a set of users for whatever data you need to get, you can use natural language search now to get that information. So we are seeing the types of AI and machine learning that we are now implementing and putting towards the identity problem increasing well beyond, I think, where we started, which was just more peer group analysis and access bundling type of activities. So there's a lot going on. I could probably go on for another 2 hours in terms of all the things that we're doing. That's what makes it so exciting. But as far as the highlights, that would be those.
Okay. Well, I think when we talked about setting this up, I said it would be quick. I said it would be painless. We're down to my last question, and I always ask the same question last because I am not the subject matter expert on any of these things. So the last question is, what did I forget to ask you, or what else do I need to know?
Hmm. It's a good question. I think that the only question I guess I would ask is we talk about identity security. We're really talking about three channels or three swim lanes. You mentioned your sons were swimmers, and so I'll use a swim lane analogy, but we're really looking at authentication, we're looking at authorization, and we're looking at privilege. And those three, I like to use the circus as an example there. The ticket takers, the SSO solutions, like the Ping and the Oktas of the world, they take tickets. They allow you into the circus. Privilege, there are certain acts in the circus that need to be controlled and monitored and quote unquote kept in their cages and protected when not in use. But when they are in use, they need to be monitored. And there's a very specific need for that in identity security, as well as ticket taking. But the authorization world, the world around who has access to what, all the different acts in the circus, are they adequately supplied and credentialed to do their jobs to the best of their ability? But really don't get them any more and don't give them any more access that they need. So I think it's not really what you didn't ask, but I just want to kind of put a bit of a spin on just understanding the world that we're living in. And when we look at SailPoint, we really are that authorization world. And so as people go out and they look for products and they try to and they navigate this identity world, there's a lot of confusion now in product offerings saying, "Oh, well, we can do that, we can do that, we can do that." And the reality is, the joke I like to make is, I had a friend call me and he said, "Hey, do you play golf?" And my answer was, "Yeah, but I'm not good at golf." Right? And I think that's the key in identity security is really best practice players. Is so crucial to, I think, the success of these programs. Um, and frankly, if I realize I worked for SailPoint, but I do think the deepest water in the pool is undoubtedly the authorization world, and that's what we've been doing for the past 20 years. We've been leaders in that space. I think essentially since its inception, and really kind of created that space. And so I look forward to anyone that's listening to this. Please reach out to us and let us show you what we do and who we are, and we really look forward to working with any and all of you. And um, thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it.
Excellent. Well, that ends our session. And again, folks, this is Dana Reed. He is SailPoint Distinguished Engineer and Field CTO. If you have any further questions on this, you can reach out to Dana via the NASTD member forum, or you can reach out to me and I can get you in touch with Dana. Very informative. I love to say that I love creating these because it's educational for me. Hopefully, it's educational for other folks, and we get lots of views on this. But thank you again, Dana, for your time today.
Well, thank you, Brad. Appreciate it.
All right. And for those of you who are going to be in Utah next, 2 weeks from now, please enjoy the show and look for the SailPoint folks when you're out there. All right. Thank you all again.